I've long admired my next guest. He's an expert political tactician and a noted commentator on major social issues. He's written several important books. And what I really like about the brother is his no-nonsense approach when dealing with issues concerning black folk. So join me in welcoming Earl Ofari Hutchinson. Earl, welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure.
Earl, are the Democrats going to be fooled again, or have the Republicans shot themselves in the foot on this Washington scandal?
Right, and it is a scandal of monumental proportions. I think what's happened is with the Republican Party, the Republican House leadership more specifically, they're in big trouble, deservedly so in many ways. There's been certainly an arrogance of power. There's been a corruption that we know has gone on through probably the last decade. And also, I think there's been a political ineptitude, too. And I think all of this is coming together at one time. Now, here's a question. Can the Democrats now, they've been out of power a long time, can they take advantage of it? That is a $64 question.
What is wrong? I mean, they have these openings, and for some reason they go soft. Now, I think this particular case with the Mark Foley thing, and with the Speaker insisting that he's going to stay the course, it sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we've heard that one before. He's going to resign. He's going to give up the leadership of the House, and I think he has to, because there's always sacrificial lambs in politics. This is a crucial election a year. We know 10 Senate seats are up for grabs at this point. It could shift the balance in the Senate. We know 15 House seats are in play at this point. And by the way, there's not one race where the Democrats at this point in time aren't leading.
And we're 4 weeks away.
And only 4 weeks away. Although sometimes in politics that's an eternity. In this case, it's not. I think what's going to happen is I think there will be a shift, probably in the Senate, not sure about the House. So Foley has been really the lightning rod for the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And so I think what's going to happen is if they can capitalize on it, that they'd be in the Democrats in these key swing states, I think what will happen is Hastert has to go because he is politically expendable. Let's face it. There's almost a smoking gun in terms of what did he know and when did he know it and what didn't he do about it. Then I think something else. There's an ethics probe, too. We don't know how deep this is going to go in the House. We don't know how many other House Republicans are going to be implicated. My suspicion is there'll be others, too.
They've got 20 subpoenas out.
They've got 20 subpoenas, and there'll be more after that. So, again, though, we have to realize, though, when you're talking about the Republican Party, two things. Number one, they've got a Mount Everest stack of cash. I mean, they've got more money than you can shake a stick at. They're the masters of manipulation. They can spin, they can massage, they can do anything.
We saw that with Kerry when they did the Swift boat thing.
Absolutely. So never count them out because they're the masters in terms of making you think up is down, down is around, the side is to the front. Yeah. But I think in this case, they're in trouble.
This is serious.
So. Now, how is this going to play out in 2007? Because this is a prelude to the big one. 2008, election year, everything's up for grab, including the presidency. No incumbent, Bush is out. Yeah. So now they have to look ahead. Their political strategists. What does this mean for us 2 years down the line? Could we lose it all? Senate, House, and the presidency. Mm-hmm. And also governorships in states, too.
But not only that, Earl. I mean, they have to be worried about if they do indeed lose the House or the Senate or both. We're looking at some serious hearings, impeachment. I mean, they got to be thinking about that. The Republicans have to be thinking about what is going, because you know what the Democrats are going to do.
Well, there's one problem, though, with that. Yes, they are. They're thinking about all of that. They've got master strategists, Karl Rove, Ken Mehlman. But I also think, too, they have the media. Now, it's basically a Republican, very conservative-controlled media. Fox News, MSNBC, talking heads, talk radio. So even now, it's always kind of deflecting, moving away, trying to throw it back on the Democrats, trying to throw it back on anybody and everybody except the culprits in this case. So I'm not so sure impeachment's in the cards. I don't think it's going to go in that direction. It really depends on what comes out of the ethics probe. I mean, we don't know at this point. If they go deep enough, they probe wide enough, and there are enough names implicated, Who knows at this point? Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are still very up in the air, intangibles. But we know one thing, they're in trouble.
They're in trouble. And I think impeachment, was a little strong for me to go at this point. But
there are some that would like to go in that direction.
Oh, absolutely. But I see the leadership, the House leadership, going. I mean, not just Hastert, but other.
They're going down the tubes. I think you see a transformation of leadership in the House. Senate, not so sure, but certainly the House, because the House has been the major obstructionist over the last few years, going all the way back to Gingrich and company in the mid-1990s. They have been the major problem. All major legislation, from minimum wage, environmental stuff, civil liberties, you name it. I mean, they have been the ones on the point to essentially torpedo everything. The Senate, a little bit different there. So I think if you have that changeover, and you have a Democratic-controlled House, and Pelosi said, I like Nancy Pelosi, who's the Democratic minority leader, she said something interesting today. I love the way she turns the phrase. She says, we are going to clean the swamp of the House. But now, Bob, you got to remember one thing. While they're cleaning the swamp of the House, the Democrats' hands aren't totally clean either on a couple of things. Number one, they have cheerled shamelessly Bush's folly in Iraq. Cheerled.
Amazing, isn't it?
The other thing they've done, the Patriot Act and the erosion of civil liberties under the guise of fighting the war on terror, they cheerled that too. They've done something else too. They haven't defined an agenda. I mean, we know with Republicans, they've been very good at defining their agenda and protecting their turf. But what do the Democrats stand for? Yeah. What do they really stand for? And I've said this over and over again. The Republican Party can make all the mistakes in the world. They can be as corrupt as sin. They can be as inept as anything, any dumbbell on the planet.
And they have lately.
And they have. Yeah. They can be certainly arrogant as anything short of, King Richard. But I'll tell you one thing. If you cannot go out there and convince voters why you should vote for me, not vote against someone else, it's not going to work. Yes.
That's always been the problem with Democrats in the last few years, actually. Let's come back home. Because I wanted to open up on a national thing, because I'm watching this thing happen, and I know that
it's intriguing.
It is intriguing. I love this time of the year.
Well,
I love this time of the year when it comes to midterm elections. What is your take locally on the attack on the King Grove? Tell me, let's talk about that.
Well, I'm probably the worst person to talk to, because I am an advocate. We have been, when I say we, many others, but principally a core of people have been out for 4 or 5 days at King Drew Hospital. And essentially, we have said one thing. You can talk about all the problems in the world of a public hospital. And this is a public hospital. People forget that. Yes. People forget this is not Cedars-Sinai. This is not UCLA Med. This is not Olive View, where you have the creme de la creme of the sick and the well-to-do. You got to take everybody. Right. We know their problems. The whole world knows that. It's been well documented. But at the end of the day, we ask this question, are you better off without a hospital, where you got thousands of people that have nowhere to go, no hospital or medical services, no insurance, no money, no transportation? What would you do? What would you have them do? So, Bob, what we did was very clearly, it must remain open, first of all. Secondly, it must remain a public hospital, not a pay-as-you-go, cash and carry. Healthcare is too precious for that. The third thing is correct the problems there. You got money. You wasted money, when I say you, the Board of Supervisors and others, wasted money on consultancy firms, drugged their feet on a lot of things, under-resourced the hospital, ignored some of the problems that even staff said should be corrected until the 11th hour and 59th minute, too late at that point. So we were pleased to see that it's going to remain a public hospital, but there's another problem now. Part of the mandate of King Hospital has been a training center for physicians. It's a training hospital, a training facility. And by the way, what many people don't know, there have been marvelous physicians that have come out of there. I mean, just absolutely top professionals. If you believe the LA Times and the rest of the stuff, then you'll think it's the worst thing in the world. Not totally true. If I could digress just 1 second and just give a personal experience. One of the reasons I felt beyond public advocacy and so passionate about saving King, My sister, 3 or 4 years ago, she had a cancer surgery at King Hospital. They saved her life. I was there day in and day out. I saw the quality of care at King Hospital. I don't care what anybody says. I saw it personally. They saved her life. My nephew, he got shot in the stomach. They had to rush him. He was in serious condition. If he had to go 5 miles more to another hospital, he'd be dead. They took him to King, got him in emergency, got him stabilized. He's alive today. So these were personal experiences, and I could go on with many others. So we felt passionately about that. Bigger question, is public health, vis-a-vis King Hospital and the Drew Medical Center, is it under attack in a system now where you have put a high price tag on health care? Privatize everything, only the rich and the well-to-do can afford quality health care. Is that a fair system, a just system? I don't think so.
I agree with your take. And the personal thing is really quite fascinating because you were there.
Sure, I saw it. And by the way, I must say, I was susceptible to believe in a lot of the negative stuff about Killer King and all that, till I actually saw the hardworking, dedicated professionals that were getting a horrible rap. I saw them bust their you-know-whats to give quality care. Are there bad ones? Are there lousy nurses? Are there lousy technicians? Are there lousy doctors that shouldn't be there? Yes, they shouldn't be there. If you go to some of the other hospitals, can you say the same? Are there lousy doctors? Are there lousy nurses? Are there lousy technicians? But the LA Times doesn't write about them.
The LA Times is funny. Who's going to own this paper eventually? I mean, it's up for sale.
It's up for sale. It will be sold. I think that, unfortunately, and I've written for the Times a number of columns over the years, and it's our homegrown paper. I think the only problem with it, a major problem, well, a couple of problems, but one that stands out, it strayed a little bit too far from its mandate of being a good local news source. I think it's tried so hard over the last few years to carbon copy the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. And guess what? That's not the roots of this paper. It's a homegrown paper, and it should stay that way. And whoever takes it over, buys it, merges, whatever, consolidates, let's hope they come back to that mandate.
What are some of the issues? We know we have the elections are upon us, 4 weeks. Nationally, I mean, forgive me, statewide. Some of the issues in your mind.
Well, I think, first of all, if I can just, this is not a hard limb to go out on. In fact, it's a very stable limb. Schwarzenegger is going to be reelected. There's no question about that.
I have that feeling in my gut.
He will be reelected. And even before he did something that I thought was very adept politically, he went from star power, Terminator, take no prisoners, celebrity allure. He rolled in on that. It's not enough. He found out something, a hard political fact of life. You got to actually be an elected official and act like one, and not a Hollywood movie star. All due respect, Bob. But so what has happened is he got a black eye during the special election. Everything he put on the ballot to subvert the process, the legislative process, it went down the tubes. The voters rejected it. His ratings went in the tank, wallowed down there with President Bush's, in the high 20s. But he did something that was very smart. Politicians should learn from that. He did a Bill Clinton number. Why Bill Clinton was hated so much by the Republicans, and they went after him with all barrels, because he did one thing. He took the Republican agenda and did it better than them. What Schwarzenegger did, he pulled a page from the Clinton playbook. He took his agenda and the reversal and reversed that. So what he did is he became a good, centrist, moderate Democrat. He gave the Democrats everything they want, and he gave them nowhere to go.
Well, he's married to one.
And he's married to one.
Right.
But he put a new team around him, and they essentially guided him in the direction of saying, play ball with the Democrats. This is still basically a Democratic state. You'll be reelected in a landslide. Some of the major issues, I think, are still, and I like this, environmental protections, the greenhouse effect, looking at energy issues, I think, in the state, obviously gas prices, fuel prices, and other things, heating oil. I mean, these are things that are important. Minimum wage. California now has the highest in the nation. I was happy to see that. He played ball with the Democrats there. Not so happy circling back on health care. He vetoed recently a universal health care plan. We need that desperately with millions of uninsured that have nowhere to go. So I think what's happening is there are a lot of major issues at play, also some of the labor issues too, and with the state employee unions. But I think as the election unfolds over the next few weeks, you're not going to hear much about these issues because there is a sense now the election's over.
Yeah. I feel very strongly with you about his reelection, and it may not be such a bad thing. I mean, it may not be such a bad thing. He's a Republican, and anyway. Talk about. Do you think Jerry Brown is going to be elected again?
Yes. Fascinating case. It just shows that you can always reinvent and reinvent and reinvent as a governor.
He's done it.
The mayor. And now he's the attorney general.
You got to give it to him. I mean, the guy's got...
He's got staying power.
Oh, jeez.
And he came, speaking of the roundtables, we have a thing that we have been doing for a few years called the Los Angeles Urban Policy Roundtable. And actually, that roundtable was done in Englewood. Mm-hmm. Our roots are in Englewood. We developed the roundtable, like the show here, out of Englewood, and we'll bring it back to Englewood again. But Brown came to our roundtable. He came by himself about 6 months ago. He was in town. It was a fundraiser, and he came, and he was in the company of just one other, his driver. And then he said, "I'm running for attorney general," but he also said something else. "I'm going to win." And at the time, I said, "This guy's got to be he's washed up, I'm in Oakland. I mean, what?" But he made a believer out of me. So anything's possible in politics.
He's also running against this real right-wing, ultra-conservative.
He's got almost a gimme as an opponent.
Yeah. Coming back to local, what is your feeling about Englewood?
I raised 2 children in Englewood, lived in Morningside Park, and am still a resident of Morningside Park in Englewood for 25 years. Kids went to school in Englewood. My business, as a matter of fact, our organization is in Englewood. It's always been there. We have always worked very closely with the block clubs, the different associations in Englewood. I've always kept an eye on Englewood city government. There's been things there, but like anything else. But nonetheless, it's always been a community that's been dear to me because these are the roots. So I was very pleased when I became more conversant with the show and what you're doing here. And I'm saying, finally, we have this because we need to imprint Englewood, not only in Englewood, but also in the larger communities.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've seen you on many shows. And in my opening, I said how much I admired you, and I really do. I mean,
we got a mutual admiration society.
Okay, all right, but now, O'Reilly, you've been on O'Reilly, and Bill O'Reilly is. I mean, the guy's got it. I mean, he's got some real special stuff going for him. I don't agree with him on most of the things, but he knows. I know. It's a natural for him, but he says something now. You've been on the show. Have you been satisfied as a political commentator going on his show? Have you been satisfied that you've gotten what you went on to say?
Well, first of all, O'Reilly is really about shtick and ratings. Okay, his whole attack dog demeanor. It's all back on O'Reilly to basically elevate. It's a cult of personality around Bill O'Reilly. Now, there's one way I've learned, and I've done this show at last count about 13 times. So I've been a fairly frequent guest on this show.
I've seen most of them, but go ahead.
Well, there's a reason. People ask this question all the time. How do you, get along with this guy? Attacks everybody, beats up on everybody. But there is a trick. And the trick is, I've learned, never, under any circumstances, your head is going to get cut off if you attack him frontally. You cannot do that. He'll destroy you. What you have to do with him is you have to be a little tactical and use the end around. So my method is always this. You already know that the big wind is coming. So essentially, let it come. And then ride with it. And then essentially, if that happens, then you move in and make the points that you want to make. The other thing is, if he likes you, really likes you, forget politics, forget the point of view. If he likes you as a person, he'll let you maybe get 10 seconds more out of your mouth.
He likes you. He likes you.
Remember what I said, 10 seconds more. I didn't say go on.
I was going to go to,
but that's a lifetime with him.
I was going to go to another point about that. The biggest lie that this guy tells, I mean, look, we've talked about how wonderful he is and all that, and how effective his show is, because it's the #1 show. But he says something that every time I hear him, I want to throw something at my television. He says, I'll give you the last word.
The last word.
I'll give you the last word. He's lying because he doesn't give you the last word.
And he's not going to.
You'll start your last word, and all of a sudden he's all over you. Right. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you just said you were going to give him his last word. And he always said that. I'll give you the last word. Right? Yeah, I do a pretty good
What he means is, I'll give myself the last word. The you is me.
Right. But I watched the show. My friends don't understand it. I have a friend who absolutely will not watch it, hates him, won't watch it. I said, I got to watch the show. I got to watch the show because of the people he has on. I know him. I agree with you. And you got it. Yeah, he has good guests. And he's got that tenacity. He's got, and I want to just throw something at him when he finally says, give you the last word. And he's lying through his teeth. That's the biggest spin on his show. But anyway, the other show. Now, are you going to come over to Englewood and do a political talk show? You should, but are you going to?
For a year and a half, I did actually kind of a Charlie Rose style, and I'm kind of reminded when I see the roundtable, because that's what we did. It was a one-on-one, kind of a Q&A back and forth, basically just kicking some issues around, mano a mano. And I enjoyed it. Did it weekly, and it was in hiatus for a while. And then it dawned on me, I really miss this. I really miss it.
Can be fun.
Well, I had to wear a different hat. Generally, I'm the interviewee, but now I had to learn something else, how to shut up and listen. I had to develop an ear. I'm not interviewing myself. I'm letting someone else. So it was a very successful show. We just interviewed just about everybody in creation, primarily politics. And I thought to myself, it would be nice to come over and develop yet another show. I think the opportunity with cable is absolutely fantastic. It's expanding, developing a good audience, a broad-based audience, and an expanding audience. So I always keep my eye on the possibilities of cable, bringing to cable a good, really well-rounded public affairs / political issue show. And I think the time is right for that. The next 2 years in America, politics is going to dominate the scene in America. It has to, because it's wide open. Presidential year coming up, and as you know, presidential campaigning started right now.
Oh, absolutely.
As you well know.
Oh, yeah.
Not too much before.
Yeah.
Now, there's so many issues on the table, and I think people now, there's kind of a renaissance. People really want to kind of talk and listen and exchange ideas. I think the time is right for that kind of show in Englewood.
I agree with you. Now, I'm doing this show. I'm an artist in the industry. I act, I produce, I develop, and things like that. But when I was asked to come and do this show, I knew that I was going to be able to sit down with civic leaders, politicians. Yeah, my celebrity friends come, and some that are not my friends come, that turn out to be my friends. But I learned so much talking to people like yourself, people who really and truly know. Now I know a little. I'm a politico. But I'm not, I'm not entrenched in it because I'm doing other stuff. But it's fascinating to me, especially this time of the cycle when we're in midterms and the senators and the Republicans. I mean the Congress and the
they're all battling each other.
Yeah, and they're out there. They're lying and they're doing. But it's very interesting to seriously sit down with people like yourself, and because I learned from it, because although I'm not a political animal, and you are, I learn from people like you, and I really think a show that is, like you say, well-developed, well-rounded, serious show about, politics in America, local, national, and whatever, is something that I think you would just, I'd watch it all the time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm just thinking, would you like to leave our viewers with some wisdom as this political person that I just talked about?
One thing I think is critically important, we see and hear this so often from so many people across America, and I think Englewood and surrounding areas are a microcosm of that. So many people are disgusted, absolutely repelled and revolted by what they've seen from our political leaders, top to bottom. They think these guys and these women, men and women, they think they're corrupt, they think they're greedy, they think they're liars, they think they're cheats, they think they're backroom deal makers, wheelers and dealers, and always essentially feathering their nest, building themselves up, and essentially neglecting, letting the country go to pot, really not dealing with the substantive issues that impact on people's lives, both at the legislative level and just public policy level, not just domestically, but certainly foreign policy too. There's a deep cynicism there. One thing, as part of my engagement in public advocacy and engagement and education through our various forums, is to kind of end around that and get people engaged. Whether we're talking about in local communities like Englewood, on just about any issue, whether it's the pothole in the street, all the way up to the war in Iraq, big and little. Get people involved and let them understand, don't be cynical, don't turn off. You too can be a change agent. I have to tell you, Bob, I've really figured out and found one thing. I know it's a cliche to say that one person can make a change, but it's true.
Very true.
If you've got dedication and commitment, you don't need to cast 1,000 sometimes. You just need one or two change agents that can make that change. So really a mission that I have at all times, education, information, and engagement. So the watchword for me is always get involved, get engaged.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Urban Roundtable is basically an entertainment show. It's an entertainment talk show. Occasionally there are politicians, politicos. If you've got a show, then I can have more celebrities. I can have more entertainment folks on my show, and then Milton won't be throwing all these politicians at me. He'll throw them at you.
Bring them on.
But anyway, I think it would be something that Englewood and the Los Angeles area could really and truly get into, a show like that with you as its head. I want to thank you, Earl Ofari Hutchinson, for coming in and sitting at the round table and talking with little old me.
Oh,